Moving on to the next comic that we're going to talk about, Whispers. Hard, hard cover to see on there. This is by Joshua Luna, who is half of the Luna Brothers team, who's written several books for Image Comics over the last several years. Ultra 7 Days was one of my favorite comics of the year when it came out. Since then they've done Girls, which is a sci-fi book, and The Sword, which is a very brutal, like, superhero type of tale. Whispers is just kind of like more of like a supernatural story. And while Jonathan Luna is the one that usually does the art on these books, Joshua Luna, who's primarily the writer for the team, is doing the art as well as the story in this one. And he has done like layouts and scripting and stuff for the other comics, but this is his first time just doing the art and doing everything by himself. Like, this is his project. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we see a lot of things that we've seen in previous like Luna Brothers stories, like the very cinematic type feel to the story. The dialogue is very similar. This one is about a obsessive compulsive guy named Sam. And I'm not usually a fan of those characters who have those kind of like, I don't know, like kind of issues, you know what I mean? I feel like it can easily like go into that, you know, I don't know, that kind of territory a little bit, you know, after school specials a little bit, you know what I mean? Like Maid territory on MTV. But I don't know, he handled it pretty well in this one. Like, he didn't make too much of a big deal about it's part of this person's life, but we've kind of moved on, and it gets into the supernatural part of this. At the beginning of the story, he meets with an ex-girlfriend of his and their friends. Their friends kind of treat him like, you know, like he's a douchebag a little bit. And then he kind of reveals that he has these kind of like very realistic dreams where he sees the other people sleeping, which turns out to be true, because later we see him astral projecting. And I really like the concept of astral projection, being able to just like kind of like slip out of your body at night and kind of wander and see other people and stuff like that. There's a manga a couple of years ago called Astral Project from the artist Marginal, that had a lot of creepy imagery and like cool places that he went with astral projection. So I'm hoping Joshua Luna does some really cool things with the concept in this. But basically he kind of thinks of people he knows and he can kind of transport there. He can't really interact with them, but he can kind of see what's going on. And he can kind of change things a little bit, it seems like. Yeah. So, I mean, this is very much a setup issue more so than the other books we've seen here. I also think it is the weakest of the four titles that we are talking about here. But it is a solid first issue. If I weren't comparing them to the other ones, I would say that, you know, it's a really solid first issue to a series. But in comparison, it is kind of the weaker one. And it's probably the weakest start to a Luna Brothers book I've seen. But I do definitely give props to Joshua Luna for the artwork. It's, I mean, he has more like attention to like facial detail and stuff like that. Little photo reference looking at times. But I think he does a pretty solid job with the artwork, especially the talking heads. Good job with dialogue. Yeah,
a lot of talking heads.
A lot of talking heads. Yeah. And it's a very dark looking book. But I don't know. I mean, I still liked it. I'm not sure where it's going to go exactly, but I'm going to stick with it definitely.
Yeah, I didn't really like this one very much. I just didn't think there was much here to recommend it. You're a big fan of the Luna Brothers.
Yeah.
This is the first comic by one of the Luna Brothers that I've not really ever read their stuff before. Actually, I think one of them illustrated an Elektra series for Marvel a while back.
Spider-Woman.
Spider-Woman, yeah, I did read that. So yeah, my impression, their artwork always really turns me off personally. I just find it really bland and stiff looking. You know, they draw in this super clean style. They can draw well, but I just find it really bland and off-putting. And I kind of have the same opinion here. With Joshua Luna, who usually does the writing.
The art is still kind of similar
to what we've seen before. His is a little bit more detailed, but I still thought it just had a really stiff, bland look. You know, he can draw well, right? Realistically, but it just didn't really excite or appeal to me at all. Nor was the story particularly interesting, I didn't think. And so, yeah, you got this obsessive compulsive guy who is kind of on the outs with his ex-girlfriend and her group of friends, and has the ability to astral project himself, which he discovers over the course of this issue. And yeah, I'm not sure what kind of a series it's going to turn into. I mean, it may turn into something interesting, but I just thought it was kind of dull and boring, and I didn't really have any reason to be interested in this character or what he was doing. It didn't have a dynamic look to it in the way that the Bulletproof Coffin or Prophet did. I just thought it was pretty bland. Whereas other stuff by the Luna Brothers at least looks kind of interesting. Like stuff like seems like to me their stuff is always kind of weird, kind of over the top concepts, like the sword. This is really more grounded in reality. Like I said, a lot of talking heads. I didn't think the dialogue was particularly well done. I thought it was a little awkward. So yeah, I kind of didn't really like anything about this comic.
Okay. Yeah, no, like in other series like the Sword, there is like usually a first issue that introduces people, and then the next issue it kind of turns into something completely different, and that carries it.
Yeah, well, there's some in the next issue. There's an image from the next issue that shows all this cool like monster like coming down as the kid is sleeping. So it maybe will turn into more of a crazy kind of concept, more interesting series. But at this point, there's just nothing really. Yeah,
this laid the groundwork, and it didn't really show what kind of a series it's going to be. I feel like a little bit.
Well, I hope it turns into something different.
But yeah, I definitely do prefer Jonathan Luna's art. Like, you don't like either of their art, but
yeah, it's kind of.
I don't know, but yeah, compared to the other series they've done too, I feel like this concept isn't as, immediately like I don't know, it doesn't really catch your attention right away like the other ones.
Yes.
But a lot of their stuff I do feel reads really well as trades, really fluidly and quickly. So, I don't know, maybe this is one of those books that you have to kind of just wait a couple of issues for it to get going. But either way, you didn't like the art, so you wouldn't recommend it.
I mean, there's just not enough here for me that I would continue to follow it forward. I mean, you might be right; it may turn into something great.
Yeah, just because I've been really impressed with the Luna Brothers' work in the past. I've really liked everything they've done except for the Spider-Woman miniseries. I do have faith that I'm going to stick it out, and I'm assuming it will turn into something amazing.
Fair enough.